Hey, so welcome to anybody who's here. This is our final session of the year. So we have three great guests for this one as usual. So starting up in the corner here, we have Niels from Crooked Spider in the Netherlands. We have Boris from Cantabria, which is El Camino. I'm not sure which one you are, in Spain. And we have Matja from Varionica in Croatia. So so there are three breweries that are, well, first, before we start, what I'll just say is the usual thing. If you're here live, if you come in live, feel free to join in, take ask questions. This is also on Facebook. If you're there, it's a bit, I'll try and check for comments and stuff, but I'm not guaranteeing. So if you really want to take part and you're watching, then go to beerfest.com and just come in that way. It's probably better. But so we have three brewers from different parts of Europe, and with different styles, different histories. So how long, guys, are you around now? Each of you, Matja, how long is Varionica?
7 years now.
7 years. You were one of the pioneers, were you? You were one of the very first.
Craft is very young in Croatia, so we just started the craft revolution 7 years ago.
Okay. And how's it going? Like that would be wine country, I'm guessing. Is it hard to?
Yeah, but it is wine country, but it's also beer country. We have one of the most biggest beer consumptions in the world per capita due to tourism and heavy drinking of the locals. And now it's booming, really. We have more than 100 breweries right now.
Okay.
In 7 years, that's a nice number, I think.
Yeah. And is that do they all have their own premises, or are they kind of?
There's a little bit of everything. There's really small guys doing it in the basement. There's commercial big breweries and gypsy brewers, all sorts.
And how about you, Boris? How's it? I mean, Spain is obviously a big country, but that would probably be a lot of wine country as well, would it?
Yes, sure, but consumption of beer here is more than consumption of wine for the last 20-something years. And actually, beer is the drink of younger generation. Drinking wine is very conservative here, as I understand. I'm not from here. So I live here for 3 years now. So we have started our journey more or less in 2017, and we opened our brewpub without the brewery in 2019, and we opened the brewery in another place just last year, in summer last year. Not the best timing, but anyway.
So you're only brewing for the past year?
Yes, we're brewing on our big equipment just for a year and a half. But before that, we've been nomads, and we did our beers with other brewers from the region, with almost the most breweries here. So,
okay.
So the thing is, we bought a big space here in the city next to the beaches. And we applied for it. It had also restaurant or hospitality license, but we applied for the license to have the brewery, and we've been rejected after a year, more or less. By that time, we had all the equipment here, and we rented an industrial premise just outside the city, quite cheap one, to keep it there. And in the end, we put up the brewery here because of some ecological problems and stuff. The pub is really close to the ocean. I don't see, personally, for me, this is not a danger. There are worse things than the brewery there. But anyway, we've been rejected. And now we have a brew pub without the brewery, and we have a bigger brewery here.
Okay.
Are you allowed to have a small brewery though in your brew pub? So like a pilot scale kind of thing, or
we have 5-hectare kettle from Brewers, if you know, the Slovenian guys, and we have 1,000-liter fermenters. Now we have 6 of them. So we have a very small bag filter from 3M, and we've got small canning line from Americans from Wild Goose. We've got the smallest Gosling. So we are more or less self-sufficient, but not very big. So, and we sell our beer mostly through our own. Now we have 2 restaurants, We also do visits in summer to the brewery. We have here like a pub, and maybe we have a couple of taps in the city. So we have never had enough beer to sell to outside. And when we have started to have it, the situation has changed with COVID and stuff, and demand was low. So more or less now we are maybe facing first winter when we have enough capacity to do something, and we started canning, and we've brought to you literally the first cans we did here. So in the meantime, our labeling machine was not working, so we labeled one type of beer by hand. Actually, I mean,
which one was that?
I think most of them they are printed with at least something, and one type is just hand drawn the dates of.
Okay, I'm just looking at
I think the blue one, the Aviator, is hand marked.
You're right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I see it.
The machine was too progressive for us a little bit. So
how about you, Niels? You've been around a while, have you?
So I started in 2014, but at that point I just started with a 50-liter kettle, so I did it next to my studies. So we had a 50-liter kettle. We were making 100 liters every week. We weren't very big. Then we did a scale up to a 250-liter capacity in 2015, which was way too small. Like obviously, once we started doing kegs, that was too small. So then we were looking for the next step. And I've been working as a head brewer for somebody else for 2 years. And then 2019, that stopped. And I said, okay, am I going to work as a brewer for somebody else again, or are we going to try ourselves? So the decision was made to do it ourselves. We did funding for a new brewery at the end of 2019, which finished right before COVID. So then going to the bank, that really sucked because obviously we needed more. So that didn't work. But then we changed things around and we went smaller, and we still bought something. So that was installed in January, or it delivered in January. First brew was in March, and now finally we're getting into a rhythm of constant brewing. So.
Okay, so it sounds like yourself and Boris have kind of started at effectively the same time.
Wrong timing, but at the same time it's good timing, I think. I think it allowed me to really look at what different channels are we selling our beer to, and maybe we need to focus more on one channel than the other, because then, like, if something happens again, in the Netherlands, the COVID situation was like, lockdown, no more sales to HoReCa, hospitality. So that if you're focusing too much, like if you had your own brew pub and you had to close your own brew pub, like we've seen people that lost 70% of their revenue. So it allowed me to really look at, like, okay, can we still do it if we have different channels? So then we started selling more to individual people, and we looked at our own brew pub as well. Just splitting things up. And I think it's as a business, it was good to have time to rethink everything. Obviously, then it lasted a little bit longer than we wanted. We had some issues with the startup as well, but so it's difficult still. But I feel like we're going ahead, and hopefully soon everything will open up again in the Netherlands as well, and then we're ready.
Are you in lockdown again?
We are in lockdown again.
Oh,
yes.
my God.
So our hospitality is now closed from 5 o'clock. So a lot of the bars have now started opening at 1 o'clock and then closing at 5 o'clock. But basically since September, numbers were going up again. And then everybody in hospitality, like as soon as we made a sale call, they were like, well, we don't know what's happening, and it's difficult to get new beer on the menu. So we kind of noticed it was going the wrong way already in September. So it didn't come as much as a surprise, but it just sucks nonetheless. So
So actually, let's while we're here, let's open one of the beers. We kind of chat about what the styles of the beers are. I don't know who wants to be the first one to open the ears.
Well, we drank them all yesterday already, so.
Actually, me too. I've consumed it during the last week. Maybe I just have the last Imperial Porter from you, Niels. And the sour from you was stolen by my wife, but she said it was cool.
Right. Well, what did you think? So, because I'm going to open one. I actually, that sour is one I
I have
want.
this one though.
Okay.
I took this one home. So the rest of the beers we drank at the brewery. But yeah, I'm drinking this one right now. So maybe we can.
I liked it very much, actually.
It's very good.
I took some notes. I remember it was reminding on Sierra Nevada Pale a little bit to me. You know.
It is kind of a classic take on a West Coast pale ale. It's the first beer we ever made.
Really?
So it's still our, let's say, flagship.
Yeah, I like its caramelly taste. I like its color. I mean, it's very balanced and drinkable. I mean, you can have more than one for sure.
Yeah, I noticed that one is that 4 point something that I remember thinking that one was drinkable as well. Yeah.
5.2%.
5.2. Just on the edge though, of having quite a few for the night. So just a minute.
Yeah, I have my notes here.
Right, Nacho, is that one you deliberately, like you said, that's your first one? Do you have a set core range? Do you have a big core range?
We have 6 beers in our core range, and then we do specials depending on the season and everything. We at one moment we have I think 12 or 13 beers in rotation.
Okay.
Yeah. We have 11 tanks in total, so it gives us an opportunity to play.
Do you keg as well?
Yes, bottles and kegs.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
And no cans there. Is that a cultural thing or?
No, this is just for now. I think cans are something that we want to invest in the future, but now it's, as you all know, now it's not the best time to go investing. We also switched. We were renting a brewery before, and in 2019, at the end, we opened our new brewery with 5 times bigger the capacities. Also, just before COVID, so we're all in a similar situation.
How big, if I might ask?
We have 40,000 liters per month.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have one kettle or several kettles, or can you tell us a little bit more about the brewery?
It's a 2,000 liter brew house. It's free kettles, and that's basically it. We have 9 tanks of 5,000 liters and 2 tanks of 2,500 liters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quite sizable, no? I think installation.
What does that make? Yeah. What does that make you in Croatia? Is that one of the bigger breweries now?
I think for 5th place, something like that. Yeah.
Not bad at all.
And is most of your sales to within Croatia? Is it based like to the local population? Is it for tourists, or how do you see that splitting out?
From this year, it's we did a lot of export, but this is the first year when we scaled up that we can do export, because we were running on full capacity for 5 or 6 years in the old brewery, and now we started exporting and doing some more retail than before. Usually in the old brewery and before COVID, 90% of our sales was to bars and restaurants. So since everything was closed, we also had to switch a bit to export and retail to survive.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, that was something I've been asking a few people, like whether the whole COVID thing has actually been good for craft breweries as opposed to, the big multinationals. Like, are people, if they're stuck at home and they're going to buy a beer and they're going to probably maybe order it online, do you see that people are taking more chances and willing to try a new beer that maybe they wouldn't have tried? Or what do you think? Is it like overall is it good for craft beer that that sense of it, or is it that people are just going back to what they used to drink anyway, or how do you think it's affected it?
I think it's different in different countries. No, go on.
I wanted to say that we saw a great rise in sales of the cheapest beer possible, and I don't think that it's so good for small breweries because you won't drink as much as at home as you would in a bar. You wouldn't go drinking by yourself at home usually, and the guys that do that drink the cheapest thing because they're alone. I want to go grab a beer with friends at the bar, maybe have a few, and that's when you're in lockdown. That's not something that that you can do, and it's fun to try new stuff with other people. So I think that it wasn't really good for sales, but it was good to like shifting focus to something that maybe we wouldn't be focused on export and retail so much if everything was going as it was. Yeah.
And do you find that as well, Niels?
Oh, I was actually going to say it's. I think it was quite the opposite here. So it seemed like big brands sold less, so the cheap stuff didn't sell because people were sat at home and not drinking as much. So they would rather spend the money on something that has great flavor. So if you say like, okay, I'll go to the bar and I drink like 8 beers, if you have that budget and spend it on proper beer, then all of a sudden you can get you can spend it on the good stuff, which is the small breweries, which are obviously more expensive. So, and obviously I think that changes per person and if you're into it or not.
Yeah, it's just something that I've been wondering because I could see, I'd be willing. Yeah, you're going online to buy beer or something, and you kind of say, "Oh, there's one I haven't seen before. I might give it a chance." Whereas before, if you're in a bar, you tend to buy just what's on tap there, and if you go to the same bars, it's the same stuff on tap. So I wanted to ask you, Matthew, just one thing about the other beer. The porter, I was just interested in the fact you've got it marked down as 7.77%. That seems very specific.
Lucky one.
Me.
Yeah, that was kind of a joke because it was made for our birthday, and we always make a beer that we present in the bar that's called, let's say, number 7 bar, and it was in lockdown when we had our birthday, so we kind of made a beer with 7.77% to honor them. We couldn't celebrate with them in their bars, so we made it and sold it online.
It's a cool guy. It's a cool guy.
Yeah, no, it jumped out at me. Like I was wondering, was it a joke thing, or was it like that you had to keep it below 7.8 or something like that? For some legal reason.
Or you have some gauge from Anton Parr to measure it so exact.
So what did you think? I mean, Boris, you were saying you made notes there. What did you think? Because there's quite a few styles from each of you. You kind of have a wide range of styles.
What I liked very much about this Hazel Cake Porter, it's really balanced. I mean, it's not too heavy on alcohol. It's not too sweet. It's not too nutty. I mean, it's very drinkable for this style of beer. It's definitely not the classic British or something porter. It's something new, what came from the States, obviously. I think the roots of the best examples are in the brewery of Founders in the States. To be honest, it reminds me very much about the Kentucky Breakfast Stout, but during the years they clogged up the alcohol and stuff and started to barrel age it. I mean, it's undrinkable, but your version to me is much more drinkable and close to the reality, to be honest. So that beer, I mean, Kentucky Breakfast Stout is a great beer. You maybe will buy one bottle in your life and try it and remember it. but your beer I would drink sometimes. So,
Thanks.
and actually, my wife also liked it very much. So,
And is she a
she's
stout
not-
drinker?
no, she's not beer drinker at all. So, and then she says it's good. It's really good. I mean, it's tasty thing. So I trust her. I mean, I have my notes on almost every beer I've tried. I'm very impressed by both of the guys, by the quality, by the balance of taste. I'm very happy. You don't do very crazy things because the craft brewing in Spain is heard by people who are doing very strange things. Yeah, and it's almost, to me, I wouldn't say undrinkable, but it's very difficult. I mean, it's something like, well, very rare thing what you will taste maybe once in your life with your friends and forget about this. And the general audience here is not used to it somehow. And people, they come with enthusiasm to craft beer place or shop and buy something like this, try and say, oof, yeah, it was too much. So I will not, now I know what is craft beer. So, and I will never go into it again. So, yeah, and it's a big problem here. So, because we have a pub, we have the like burgers, and we have a barbecue with the real coal and stuff. We have a lot of people who are not coming for beer. They're coming just to eat with families, kids, friends, watch football and stuff. So, and some of them say, "Ooh, actually, craft beer is drinkable. We didn't know." So we have tasted it. It was awful. So, and somehow here it's okay. So, and we have there about 20 taps now in the first place. We have some of our beers. We have also other beers. We have some famous, some less. A lot of beers from the region, from the north of Spain. And people, I mean, just general normal people, they taste it and say, okay, fine, we will come again. I mean, prices here a little bit for them scary. But this is the reality. Beer is very cheap here. I mean, the industrial beer costs nothing. So, but it's just really water mixed with some extracts and stuff. So, that's why I'm coming back to what I've started for. I'm very glad you're doing drinkable beers, real beers. I'm very conservative as well. I like you keep the things close to the original style, let's say. And I believe this is the future of the craft. We need to produce more drinkable beers for normal people. Try to find industrials with good taste. And of course, we need to keep maybe 10% or 5% of our production of very strange things, modern things, innovative things and stuff, but not vice versa.
Yeah, that actually brings up a bunch of questions there that I think I've asked some people before, that a lot of the craft beer, I suppose it's two things. Like, yeah, like you say, a lot of people there seems to be a need that people have to be doing very experimental stuff a lot of the time. And like I said, that maybe doesn't appeal to the general public. It might appeal to some people who are already into it. But at the same time, I mean, I was thinking about this over the summer, because I was on holiday in France and I had some local beers there, and they were all very nice beers, but there was nothing there that you would say was experimental or anything. They were very drinkable beers, and it started me thinking, like, yeah, how do I phrase this? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought here. So, they're very drinkable beers. They weren't wild, as you say, but there seems to be a lot of place for local breweries to make good drinkable beers without, it's something to be proud of. It's not something that you can say, like, I have to go and make the next experimental great weird beer, which you see people making, 60% alcohols and 10 and all of this. And it seems to me that there's not enough breweries that are just proud of, being the local good beer.
Well, we have a marshmallow milkshake IPA lined up. We have experimental hop New England IPA lined up. So I'm not sure. I think, like, for me, so like I used to do production brewing, so like just Pilsner all the time, and after a while that gets boring. Yeah. And for me, doing something crazy, doing something experimental, that needs to be there to get back into the fun of it, right? Because I started this because I enjoyed doing it, and now I enjoy making a business out of it. And I think there's different channels. Again, like coming back to that, like, there's different people that drink different beers, and I definitely think, you know, there's a need for just normal beers and easy beers and just easygoing stuff without, like, there are some people that don't want to have an explanation of the beer that they're going to drink. They just need to know it's a triple, and they know what to expect from a triple, and they're going to drink a triple. Like me personally, I don't like triple, so I don't like drinking triple. But we make a triple, and we kind of made it with a little bit of a twist so that we have the story. And but it's just easy triple, and people like it because it's easy. And then you got the other beers, so like a California Gold or Imperial Stout, that are more, there is more flavor to it. And then also we barrel age that Imperial Stout, and then you get, like, you know, we had the Corona rum barrel in the past, which is like the most sought after rum. So you really need to tell the story so that you actually appreciate the beer that you're going to get. Obviously, there were only 400 bottles of that, whereas with the other beers, we're just, you know, production brewing it. So yes, there's a need, like, your beer needs to be good. That's like the first step. And then you also need drinkable beers, and you also need to be able to experiment a little bit, because if you don't experiment, then you also don't learn to increase, or like we're just seeing like the spectrum coming around from Simply Hops. Like, that's super interesting to see, like, hey, we can dry up without having the losses, and that is cool to experiment with that on different levels, because on the one hand it's like, okay, let's try it and make like something super extreme and see, like, you know, what happens if we add this and we replace something that usually had like 20 grams of citra, and now it doesn't, and then you can use that knowledge again to make your normal beers even better, or like more sustainable, or more efficient in that way. So I think you need to keep experimenting with funky flavors as well. I think in the Netherlands, we are, after America, the biggest country that uses Untapped, which is crazy because we don't have a lot of people in the Netherlands. So that makes and breaks our beer market as well, because we do have a lot of people that just want to buy the beer once. They're even from the start, they don't care to buy it again. And then as a brewer, that's nice, because you can bring out a new beer and people will buy it, and your first like 1,000 liters is gone. But then that also decreases the quality of that stuff, because you're not improving it anymore, because you're only making it once, and you're only making it to be made once. And actually, we're going to release like a whole entire series where we actually do that. So we only actually make the beer once. Partly because we have the people that just want to buy it only one time. Yeah. And then for me, it's like experimenting and trying out different flavors. But it, that kind of affects the quality of the rest of the normal beers, so to say. Because if you're selling it anyway, it doesn't matter what it tastes like. And that's what, that's what's difficult as well. So, yeah.
Yeah.
You need good beers, you need experiments, I think.
Yeah, no, I've heard that the effect of Untapped. A few people have said it to me. Like, we've had a discussion that it's great. All I keep hearing from brewers is that it's great if you want to export or something. You can go to the distributor and they look at you on Untapped, look at your ratings, and they say, "Yep, we can distribute this." But yeah, the need to constantly produce new beers that people will only try one time, and that you have to constantly produce a new beer and then a new beer, and yeah. Did not seem popular, not among the brewers.
Yeah, but for example, here in Spain, your distributors, they ask you every time for a new beer. So that's
because the customer wants a new beer.
Yes, they push it just once, and then another one, and so on, and nobody. And the price is a little bit too high for your daily beer, I would say. Anyway, so and they just. It's like a constant novelty market. So it turns around new things. And last summer was about Napers, and all Spain was making Napers. Even the guys who didn't know anything about oxidation and stuff, they started to do. And it was really, really a nightmare, because a lot during the COVID, I don't know how was the market on the side of demand, but supply really changed, and all the breweries, they put up the online stores. And finally, I've been in position here in Spain to order beers from many places in Spain and try from another breweries. So, and my experience was really mixed. I mean, so there are maybe a dozen of very, very good established with high quality beers breweries, and another 100 of guys who really below standards, I would say. I don't want to say something bad about them, but for canned beer and bottled beer, they're really below standards. So, in Spain, you need first to establish your brand name, I think, and build trust from your customer. And this you can do with just normal beers, drinkable beers, like British American IPAs, pale ale, something what customer knows. Customer tries it from your hands and said, okay, it's good quality, it's drinkable, and I might try something crazy from your hands, let's say. Vice versa, it doesn't really work, I would say.
Yeah, it sounds like, I mean, you've basically got two markets. You've got the craft beer person who already knows craft beer and is willing to try stuff, and then that's only a small number of, the general population. So especially if you've got a bar, you have to have something that the person comes in and it looks like something they're used to, and then you can, like, if they come in and they're looking for a lager, you say, well, I have a lager, but it's not your brand that you're used to, but it's something else, and maybe it's a bit tastier, and it's got a bit, and get them on that way, and then.
Yeah, I can see it daily because we are in very tourist region of Spain. We have a lot of people from North European countries, beer drinkers for many years, where craft beer culture is much more developed than here, and we see like two different worlds. I mean, the Spaniards who are entering this world and educating on the way, and I don't know, Dutch guys who are coming. They know a lot about craft beer. They know brands. They know also Spanish brands, and they ask absolutely exactly what type of beer they want to try, and they kind of go through all the taps, and they're very happy. Something like this.
Yeah.
So absence of tourists cost us a lot here during these COVID times, for sure. Especially we here used to have a lot of Brits. So for them, our prices are just peanuts, to be honest, Brits and Irish. So, and for me, feedback is very important because I think they know their beers, and their craft beer exists for the last like 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
We don't have very much US Americans. We have a few Japanese guys. So in Japan, it's also on the rise, but they don't really know the brands. They don't know the tastes. For them, it's just little blind fashion. So give me a craft beer. What? Craft beer.
Right.
So,
sorry, I'll just let you know that just after opening the passion sour there, which I was keeping, very nice.
Yeah, this is one I've missed.
That's the one your wife took.
Yeah.
No, I like this one a lot.
I'm not sure if my wife has stolen that as well, or if it's still in the fridge to try together. She didn't want to interrupt our meeting.
So is it the kettle sour, or is it? How did you sour it?
Yeah, it's a kettle sour made with lactoplantarum. I didn't drop the pH too much because the passion fruit is already sour by itself. So I think it ended up on 3.5 in the kettle. We threw in some sea salt and coriander. And in the secondary, we put some passion fruit.
Right.
And we made it for which is interesting. We made it for only Michelin star restaurant in Zagreb.
Okay.
So yeah, they ordered a special beer so that they could pair it with food as they would pair Riesling wine, let's say.
Okay.
So they said to us, make something like Riesling wine. So we did some experiments and made something that has nice citrusy aroma, a little bit of minerality and goes well with fatty food.
All right. I was wondering why there was the pictures of ducks and things on the back of it.
Yeah, it's like a pairing suggestion.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, that's something I hear a lot as well. People saying that, you know, a lot of people complaining, like, you know, high-end restaurants just don't put the same effort into beers that they put into wines, and that it's an awful shame, because it's a way to introduce people to, you know, they just don't take beer seriously in restaurants for some reason. Do you find that?
But that now I think it's slowly changing, and that's something we wanted to do with this beer, with this restaurant Noel, to show people, if you're taking care and have pride in your wine selection, rum selection, you have nice cigars, you have humidifiers, you have everything, but you have industrial beer on tap, that's just doesn't make any sense. There's no use of having a free course dinner with 150 euros and drink industrial beer in a green bottle. Makes no sense at all. Give the customer the whole experience.
Yeah. I mean, I keep hearing that, obviously, from brewers, but enough. It seems to be a big, you know, and you see it yourself. I mean, I go out, yeah, and it's always, they have a huge wine list, but they never have a beer list. You know, it's just, yeah, whatever's there, and I mean, you end up with a bottle of Heineken or something then at the end of the day. You know,
Yeah, it's mostly Heineken, yeah, in high-end restaurants.
Yeah. So, sorry, just obviously, Niels, you know, we were saying about, you know, that the market and that. So obviously, each one, you know, Netherlands obviously was dominated by Heineken, and there was probably not much else. But you still were, you know, it's close enough to Belgium that Belgium kept a good tradition. How did that play out?
Your question is, what's the difference between the Dutch culture and the Belgian culture?
You know, each country had a big industrial one. You know, Spain had San Miguel, isn't it?
Well, we have 4 big ones.
Okay, 4 big ones. I don't know about what would be in Croatia, but like the Netherlands was obviously dominated by Heineken.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, so that was kind of like your monopoly beer that everybody drank. But at the same time, you know, it's so close to Belgium, which had kept this kind of range of beers and this variety. Like, how did that play out were there parts of the Netherlands that are more receptive to a wider
yes.
beers?
So you definitely notice the Belgian beer styles are very popular in the southern regions. So you have North Brabant and Limburg, which are 2 provinces that are more to the south, so they're closer to Belgium, and they have more of the Belgian beer culture. I think, you know, Heineken started buying La Chouffe and Aflichem and then importing that as well. So I think we ended up with basically now, like, people call specialty beer is the stuff that they were getting from Belgium, and then all the other beer is Pilsner, and then we are there like craft beer. Like, what are we? Like, we're not specialty beer because, you know, it's not the same as what you're known to. Like, we get some people in the brewery on a tour, and then they go like, oh yeah, I've been drinking specialty beer for 40 years. And it's like, yeah, but like, probably you've only been drinking like your triple carmelite, and that's fine. Like, it's good beer, but it's big beer now. You know, like, it doesn't count anymore. It doesn't count as special because they give something is brewed like in Belgium in super high tanks. Like, obviously you have all the small breweries still in Belgium, so there were a lot more like old small breweries. They make great stuff, but as soon as it comes to the Netherlands, most of it is just big brand because it's bought by the big brand, it's distributed by the big brand. Like, if you're talking like La Chouffe or Duvel, obviously is a Belgian brand that started into our market. So it's very interesting, our culture, because we did have Pils. Like, Pils was basically it between 1930 and 1980. And then you started getting like a little bit of the Dutch breweries coming up and saying, okay, like, you know, we can also make beer. The Belgian specialty beer started to be imported, so it was more than just Pils. And I think craft beer really started like 2007. So we were actually quite late on we were quite late to jump into commercial brewing. But then after, in those years, like a lot of breweries started. So I think you had like 400 when we started in 2014, and now, well, somebody told me yesterday it was 1,000. The last number I heard before that was 900. So we have a lot of breweries. But then obviously a lot of those breweries, like you say, are same in Croatia. Like they're just basement brewers. They're listed as a brewery, but they make like 5,000 liters a year. And then the question is like, well, at what point do we stop calling them like breweries as just like for giving the numbers, or are there actual breweries? Like how many people are working there? Because a lot of these small breweries, like they're not working full time. Like we started when I started, I was brewing on Saturday and I was bottling on Friday after school. I would go and bottle the beer, and then on Saturday would fill the tanks again. So like that's 1.5 days. And even now, theoretically, I could, we have a 1,500 liter installation. We can make 60 to 100,000 liters. I only need to brew like 1.5 days a week to fill those tanks, and then the rest of the time is all the admin and all the sales. So really, like we could get away with not doing it full time still. So yeah, when is something an actual brewery? I think.
Yeah, that's the big question. So yeah, that just while we're still on about the Belgians, I mean, I tried the double. The double, I think it was the double the other night. I was really expecting something different. I don't know what I was expecting it.
We don't make a double, so
like a left or something like that. It really, really surprised me. It was very nice.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I'm not entirely sure what we sent you, but I think we sent a witbier met de Wassenaarse slag.
Yeah.
Which basically means the Wassenaar way, but it's called after a beach. Then we sent you the blonde, which is Doemij en Del, which translate to I'll have a floozy. So a girl that's quite easy. But we have a natural reserve in the south of Wassenaar, which is called Mijendel. So that's the joke there. And then we sent you the triple Of Je Windlust, which is named after a windmill in Wassenaar. So those are the classical beer styles.
The blonde I had, which I was expecting, a pretty standard.
Sweet Leffe. Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
It surprised me when we got it, but it was a really nice take on it.
Thank you. I don't like classical beer styles. Like I prefer a California Gold or Amber or like the pale ales that we had from you guys. I enjoy that much more than a Belgian-inspired beer. So actually, all those 3 beers are made with the same yeast, and we change the yeast and we do different things with the yeast to make the flavors pop out more. And like it's a Belgian yeast, but it's not super Belgian in that sense that if you go to Belgium and you ask for the local triple, like you can smell that it's a triple, like straight away. It has that distinct aroma. Which Belgian beers have, and that's just something I don't like personally. So I try to keep that on a low level, but obviously you kind of need it if you want to make a style safe kind of beer.
Yeah, I liked your triple very much, and I liked exactly. It doesn't have this phenolic sharpness of traditional Belgian yeasts, and I thought maybe you either used another strain of non-Belgian yeast, or you just fermented it quite at low temperature to suppress it.
It's POF plus, so it is phenolic positive, but indeed we, especially at the start, so we limit. I think we knock out at 20 degrees, and then the first 2 days it's 20 degrees, and then after that we let it go.
Good.
So actually, like your estuary part, you keep that minimized, and then after that you make it go up because I do want a little. So it's also got all the wheat and all the oats. So we also do the 4VG step to get a little bit of banana in there. So then at the end of the fermentation, we do raise it up again to. Which doesn't always work, but the idea is there anyway.
And that's one of the kind of specials you do. Is it the low volume batch ones?
No, actually the other way around.
Okay.
we're from Wassenaar, which is basically the richest town in the Netherlands. We're not the richest people in the Netherlands, but that makes it very difficult drinkers, because either you drink champagne, and then on the other spectrum, we have people that just drink the cheapest pills available. And we noticed that we also have a lot of expats. So like our California Gold, our American Amber, like that work really well with the expats. But if I would take it to my sports team, they'd say like, well, that's a little bit too much flavor for us. Like we just want the green bottle with the red star on it. So we don't notice any flavor, and we can just drink like 10 of them in the evening and still wake up normal. So like it was very difficult to make beer for the locals because they're not really used to drinking more beer than just that. So we said, if we're gonna be placing a bigger brewery, we need to get volume going, and the volume of beer in the Netherlands is still the Belgian style, the classical beer styles, because too many people only know that still as beer. So we said, okay, we'll make a wit beer, we'll make it blonde. We got a Pilsner that we're releasing on Tuesday. Then we have a triple and we have a quadruple lined up as well. So those are 5 beer styles that we base on Wassenaar. So yeah, different places in Wassenaar. And actually they're meant to be in a higher volume than the other beers. So actually, like it's the other way around from what you said.
I always get it backwards. Right. So yeah, so I mean, you also have, like I said, you had a stout. How stouts I wouldn't have thought were hugely popular in the Netherlands or in Croatia for that matter. Like,
we sell enough of it. So.
Yeah, fair enough. I wouldn't have thought in Croatia or Spain either that stouts were hugely popular, are they?
No, not really. To be honest, we have on top Guinness, the real one, in our restaurant, and that's enough.
Right.
So
yeah, an awful lot of people seem to think that that's a craft beer as well.
No, we don't pretend it's a craft beer, but it's just a standard and has a good taste and stuff. So, and as a pub, we have to have it.
Right.
Kind of. So, and we don't want to make it ourselves. And we have either 50-liter batches with our trial equipment, or we have at least 1,000 liters. So neither makes sense to produce. So.
Right. And in the ones you sent, Boris, I mean, you sent us the first 3 off your canning line. Are they typical of what you're producing? Because they're obviously the first ones off. We can't, are they typical of what you have in your pub, of what you produce?
Yeah, they are number 1, 2, and 3 in our sales, and that's why we have started to can from them. The first one is American Pale Ale, let's say, very aromatic, simple, light on grist. Another one, yes, Rubia.
Yep, that was nice.
In Spain, Rubia is synonym for light beer. So if you come to a pub and you ask for a lager, you ask for Rubia. So we've just named our beer Rubia, so to avoid confusion. So we sell a lot. It fits the taste. It's simple but much more aromatic. It's not pasteurized and it has different tastes. Absolutely. So we filter it with 1 micron filters to get the most of the yeast in it. We control it with a microscope, with a chamber. We're calculating yeast, so to have a stable product. We do it with almost all our beers, except maybe Napas and stouts, let's say. We used to make some small batches of stouts as well. Another one is very typical, I would say, British IPA. It's inspired by the Aviator. It's inspired by more or less Sierra Nevada Pale with little bit twist in the grist composition. We are using here 100% Spanish malt from Spanish factory and from the Spanish fields. So it's a little bit more intense, I think, as a grist composition. And the third one is Amber. It was inspired by Irish red beers like Kilkenny maybe or something. With some modern twist, we're using some of Citra in hopback just to make it a little bit more aromatic, more modern, because without that, we cannot compete with the other beers. And we have in our main program of the 4 beers. Also very standard ones. We will also start to produce them very soon. We have it in fermenters. We have Brewmaster series, something what we do just once. If I like certain historical style, or I can get a batch of interesting hops or something like you do in Varionica. So we do it once, and we have like 1,000 liters of kegs of it. We sell it during summer usually, and that's it. And we also have seasonal things. And for the last 3 years, we have Märzen. It's a just German pink lager, little bit more grainy with little bit more taste. And another one we do India Pale Lager. We call it Bohemia. It sells very well. It's also lager, but it's quite hoppy, and it has like 6% of alcohol. I mean, it's quite punchy thing. So we don't keep them all the year round because they're really very seasonal things, and they compete to other beers what we sell. So we try to keep them separate a little bit. So this is our main program for now, and we will try to keep it for another year or 2 years and see how market will accept it. I mean, we have changed already several times the names, the types of beer, and so on, because we have our own experience, what we can sell, what we cannot here in Spain. So, and we will see. And I have a deep portfolio of recipes because our small equipment we're using every week. We have 3 small fermenters for 60 liters, and we have a 50-liter Braumeister. So, and we're always doing some new things, looking for recipes, doing crazy things and stuff.
Yeah, so, that's the part that, like Niels was saying, that's the part where you kind of change it from being just a business to being still a big
change it from work to hobby.
In that you've got a passion in. Just trying to do those.
The problem is the audience doesn't always accept what you like. You either have to be very stubborn to push it through with all your force and hope, or you should just do some commercial product what people drink and produce something what you like for yourself. And also we serve our small batches in the brewery in summer during the visits. And actually some of the beers what we have tested with these visits, we are now making as a commercial product.
Right. Yeah, it's that balance, like we said, about the 2 separate audiences and who you're trying to reach the market with is, I can only assume it's quite difficult. You're either going to...
And obviously we have visitors.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then
the people who visit the brewery, they have interest in beer, and they asking me to have something strange, crazy, and stuff. So we are doing like a smoky porters. We are doing Belgian triples with British yeast, for example, completely these things. And people like it, they drink it, but I'm pretty sure you can. We did some experiments with, for example, we made a smoky lager, which is not as smoky as the original from Bamberg, but recognizable, and it sells very slow, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah. So for the beer, I like it. I would drink a lot, so it's not heavy. It's very tasty and so on. But locals, they don't really associate the smell and taste with the beer. This is it. Maybe you could sell it very well in Germany, somewhere in the south, but here no.
Yeah, I guess again, yeah, it's much harder when you're trying to sell through your own pub to focus on, unless you're marketed as a craft beer pub, you have to have something that people can come in and they recognize the style, and you might have just have a slight twist on it to slowly get them over onto that, but they're not going to go and jump onto something completely like a marshmallow IPA if all they've ever drank is Heineken. They're not going to.
They might like it.
They might, but they're probably not going to try it.
Yeah, usually it's a barrier. So, and a lot of people, they convert it. They try something, if they like it, and they continue to try.
Yeah, someone told me that actually. I can't remember who we had on, and they said that it's actually think it's easier trying to convert people in a wine country, because once you've converted them from wine, they're willing to try lots of beer. Whereas if it's a beer country and they're used to lagers or something, they're not willing to try another different style of beer.
I also think that so with the wine, it's more about the story anyway. And I think with craft beer, like we basically live on the story. We live on the experience of the beer that we produce. Like it, you know, it's great to make a blonde, but it needs to be a good blonde. It needs to be interesting. It needs to be different from like the last blonde you had, and also it needs to have a nice story so that you can sell it. And if like you have a winery, like, you know, we're from Wassenaar, like we have a lot of people that know a lot about wine, and they could talk forever about like this, you know, this local thing that they found like on their holiday, and they went there and it's like this little guy in the cellar. They could talk forever about that story of the winery, which makes the wine better. So if you know that from your wine, then it's obviously a lot easier to go into the beer brand and say like, oh yeah, we know this little brewery from Wassenaar, or you guys, like, you know, and there's the story, and the guy, like, he started it out, and, you know, 2 years ago they started a pub, and it's you have that story already, so it makes sense that it's easier to convert people that are used to wine to craft beer than the other way around. Because yeah, I mean, it's like the sports team, like they don't like the flavor, right? They're not interested in taste. They're not interested in anything else than just drinking water that looks like beer. So yeah, you can't give them an imperial stout. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, I can see how that works out. All right. Yeah, but I mean, personally, I think stouts. I'm not 100% sure of all the ones that have a lot of adjuncts, but I do like stouts generally, you know. But then, you know, that's I'm Irish. That's where we started off with Guinness. Yeah. You know, we're probably, like I say, I think a third of all beers sold in Ireland is Guinness or something. You know, it's a huge stout area, obviously. But though lately a lot of the craft ones are nitro stouts. They're becoming very popular, which I don't see around much anywhere else.
No, here
I
not.
think in the States only.
Yeah,
I think it's also trying to mimic Guinness.
Yeah,
right. Because Guinness is obviously tapped with nitros. So then, like, if you want to sell something that's not Guinness, but it still is Guinness, like, you know, like, it's the same beer as Guinness, but it's not Guinness.
Yeah, it's got the same feel. And
yeah, so we have a bar actually that contract brews with us as well, and they said like, oh, can we mimic the foam? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I guess like we can try. We can try and look into it. But obviously, like, we fill everything in key keg, so then it's a different story than if you got your stainless Guinness keg. But yeah, so it makes sense that they say, like, in Ireland, like, oh, it's a nitro stout, and actually here, like, in the Netherlands, I don't see the added benefit of being nitro stout rather than normal stout. Like, it's a stout, so just drink it as a stout.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it is partly a fad, you know, what someone's, because that's part of what's being promoted. I've seen a lot of, like, you know, it's the nitro stout or new nitro stout, and they're pushing the nitro, and I think it's just partly a fad. But like I said, it is based around the whole Guinness nitro cans and all of that.
Oh, definitely, it looks better in a glass with this very fine foam, which stays forever if you know what you are doing and stuff. We have installed one nitro tap in our pub as well, and probably we have sold just one keg of some nitro American stuff, and that was it. Because people ask, what is that? Why the tap is different? They say it's nitro. You see, we have here special nitrogen to push it through to make the foam. Blah blah blah. I say, yes, okay, give me a root beer.
Yeah, they're just like, why am I waiting so long for my beer?
Yeah,
yeah, that's constant. That's a problem because beer here is served at 0 degrees more or less. So foam stays for like 3 seconds on top of it, and this is it. And it should be full to the brim.
Yeah.
For you, €1. So
yeah.
otherwise it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's actually something I did have a note. I meant to ask a few people about the temperatures when you're, you know, beer. Obviously, you know, that should be at different temperatures depending on the beer and that. But how do you feel like when you sell your beer, you sell it into a bar, it's sold to someone at home, and that, like, you lose complete control over what the taste is pretty much like, don't you?
I've given up. we put on our label, say please drink it at 10 degrees. But I mean, we still get people that drink the stout and say, oh, it tastes like coffee, I don't like it, and like, dude. And yeah, I mean, at some point you just give up, and so yeah, like I have an idea of how you're meant to drink our stout, and if people drink it and they say like, I've lost the complexity, then it's like, well, then you drank it too cold and you drank it too quick. Like you're meant to savor it. Like it needs to take you 45 minutes, and in those 45 minutes you get, you start at 10 degrees and it warms up to 20 degrees. You get different flavors coming out. But you can't put that all on the label, and even if you do put it on the label, people are not gonna do it. So yeah, you just give up. You just make it like the way that I think it's perfect, and the way that I think it will work best, like when it reaches the end consumer. But yeah, you can't help a pizzeria that stores their beer like under their oven. You can go in there 15 times and say like, dude, like you can't. That's not good for the beer. Like there's a reason why I want cold storage. That doesn't work. But if they don't have the space anywhere else, they're not going to do it unless you put a fridge in their place and say they put it always in the fridge. So
yeah, no, it must be incredibly frustrating when you go to the trouble of just producing this beer that you think is just right. You're proud of, and then that someone, like you said, is taking it out of the fridge at 3 degrees or 4 degrees or whatever and just throwing it back. Or even for us, like I said, in a pub where the expectation is that it's colder, especially from what you said at Spain. The expectation is that the beer is cold, and what do you do then? That it should be sold warmer, but how do you manage that?
In summer, it happens automatically. You get your pint at say 4 degrees from your tap while you're sitting on the terrace and drinking it. They drink long. Usually more than half an hour. So somewhere by the middle of the pint, the temperature is quite right, and by the end, it's just warm soup. So and you go down, and we sell actually a lot of small with 330 milliliters, smaller cans, and the standard here is actually 220 milliliters, just glass. It's called Kanya, yeah. And the tradition here is rather drink more of the small ones because you always have very cold one.
Okay.
So, we are fighting our bars and distributors by filtering the beer, giving more stability to the product. So if they do mistake and keep it under the sink, it stays fresh for a couple of months instead of a couple of weeks. With private consumers, it's agreed to nails, hopeless. I mean, we give recommendations and they do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know.
It's easier to control tap beer. You know the owner. At least we do know all the owners of the bars that we have tap beer on, and so we go around there. Keep in mind that they don't keep the kegs next to the pizza oven, which happened more than once. But when you start the bottling and canning, then if they can buy your beer at a shop or at a distributor, there's no control for you anymore.
Yeah. And again, if you're coming to people who are maybe people who are into craft beer might have a little bit more knowledge about it, but someone coming from drinking cold lager is just going to keep it in the fridge and just take it out and
of course.
And then some beers are meant to be cold, so it gets kind of confusing even if you know what you're doing.
Well, we had over springtime. We had quite warm weather here, and people started keeping our beer in their shed. And we had one of our very first cans was overcarbonated. It started to re-ferment in the can, which was just a mess. And I think it's my fault, but I'm not entirely sure. I tried to blame the canner, but we can't. But people started saying, I always say to people okay, so what happened to your can? Where did you store it? What happened? How did you treat it? So that we can know, what is it our fault? Is it your fault? Because these were the first times that we hear cans exploding anyway. And then you hear people oh yeah, I used it in my office and I stored it in my office and it got 28 degrees there. And then you just think you thought it was a good idea to store any beer at 28 degrees. you don't put your cheese at 28
Any
degrees.
food product, not only
Yeah,
beer.
exactly. Like why? And then they blame us obviously for delivering a bad beer. But
Yeah, there were some cases that wasn't it in the UK. I can't remember which brewery they were. I think they were re-fermented. They had a lot of fruit in the beer or something. I can't remember who it was, and all the cans started exploding because they were saying, "No, we've told you on the can that it had to be kept at this temperature." So it's, but the customers didn't care. Like they were going to sue them, and that was it.
Yeah. No, that's the difficult thing. Like eventually, like you also get into that part of like store it cool and dry. You have to store it cool and dry because otherwise, like you ruin your beer. So.
We have the same experience. We did trial runs of bottles, and we started to do our Rubia as a wheat beer in Belgian tradition, inspired by Hoegaarden or Blue Moon, something in between. So, and actually, we kept, I don't think, like maybe like 50 bottles of each beer in the office, and a little bit less in the fridge. And we tasted every more or less 2 weeks the product. What would happen with our product on a shelf in a normal shop without the fridge? Actually, and maybe after like 8 months, we stopped selling our Rubia because it started to gush. I mean, massively, like more than 50%. So we recalled several boxes we have had, and that was it. So, and I think in the future it will be practice for us. We will keep some cans of every lot. Here we have in the lab some space at ambient temperature, and some we will keep in the fridge. So we will more or less understand how our product develops. Because now we make much more hoppier things. We do dry hoppings, we do double dry hoppings at different temperatures. We're not going as high as to have this hop creep. I hope never had it before in my beers. So, but I think the stability of the beer, maybe like 50%, is on our side. Actually, we can do something. We can do something.
Yeah, I have an insulated box in the lab. We haven't properly installed it. So we're ready to because they say like if you keep it for a week at 30 degrees, and then like for sure that if it's 30 degrees and you keep it for a week and nothing happens, then you kind of know that nothing is going to happen. Although like if you have diastaticus in your product, like it's going to go anyway. So
it's like a forced fermentation or forced fermentation. Yeah. In summer, it happens with us automatically. I mean,
yeah, you just leave outside and it's 30 degrees, right?
Starts to boil.
Yeah. So we will see. We have here friends who make a lot of nepas, these juicy, very hoppy things, and we sell them very successful in our pub. We have also a gastro market here in Santander, and we have the little shop where we also sell some stuff. Not only from us, also from other breweries here in the north. And they really suffer because the culture of distributor, the culture of the retailer is not as high as to kind of allocate cold keeping space for the beers until they sell it. I mean, they have 5 boxes just outside in the street, and then they bring 10 cans for the day into the fridge. I mean, you take your can from the fridge, but it's something awful, and you ask, where do you keep it? Obviously, he tells you he keeps it in the fridge, but it's not true because he has just some uninsulated shed behind the shop, and this is it, and all the beer is there.
Yeah.
So, and whatever you can explain, whatever, they will do nothing because they don't have capacity and the culture.
Yeah, it was. I was talking to Beretta from Romania, and they released a beer, and they just call it "Treat It Like Milk." Just. Yeah.
Makes sense.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
I don't know whether it worked for them or not, but that was.
What happens to sour beers then?
No, if something happens to your beer, you sell it as a sour.
Yeah. So listen, guys, we've been talking for over an hour now, so maybe we'd start wrapping up. So since you all tried the beers, we didn't get to kind of really talk. Like we touched on each of them and that. So I'm going to ask you, out of the other people's beers that you tried, which one personally was one that you would say, appealed to you? And what? Niels, you start. Which one out of El Camino's?
From El Camino, one of the IPAs. I don't remember which one I took home and which one we drank at the brewery. It was very late at the brewery, and we had a lot of beer at the brewery. But I definitely preferred the IPAs to the Amber. I wasn't sure about the Amber, what happened there. I'm going to try another one and see what we think of that one. But I think both the IPAs were, good, hoppy, like clean, good IPAs. And from Varionica, I like the pale ale just like for, mass drinking. But I think the hazelnut porter was good. Like when I smelt it, I thought like, oh my goodness, they added something, and I personally don't like adding something. And then we have a guy from Moldova now as an intern, and he said, "Oh yeah, it says on the label," because obviously I can't read the label. It says they added cocoa, and then we're like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense that there's cocoa added." But it was good because it was there in the nose, but not so much in the flavor. Because like what you also said, Brian, about like all the pastry, like the adjunct stouts, like I don't like that too much. But I think it was very good. It was very balanced, very tasty. So
what I'd say about it is, again, like I'm not a big fan of stouts with adjuncts in them, but I could see exactly what it was meant to be, and it wasn't maybe 100% to my style, but I could see it was a good example of what it should be, of what I wanted to be,
We don't like heavy, too sweet beers, and pastry stouts tend to be overly sweet, and guys just keep throwing in different stuff in, and it at one point it has no sense.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make something like a pastry porter, but toned down, not too sweet, more of dark chocolate, not milk chocolate. And I'm very happy how it turned out.
I think it succeeded exactly what you could see, exactly what it wanted to be, and I thought it succeeded. I agree with you. I do not understand the whole idea of a dessert in a can or dessert in a bottle. It just doesn't make sense to me at all.
People waiting to pay €7 for a can, so
yeah, that's true.
There's the appeal.
Yeah, don't understand why, but it seems to be the popular style, and I just don't understand it. But then again, that's just not the sort of stouts I was brought up on. Like, so, how about you, Boris? Is there any particular ones you saw that you have all the notes?
Croatian and France, all beers very drinkable, very good. I would say this hazy HBC 522 was the most unexpected of them all. The flavor of the hops. You showcased it very well. So actually, I wouldn't mind to drink another box of this.
Box.
Yeah, to have another box and enjoy it once at the end of the week or something. Pale is good, very drinkable, everyday beer, fantastic. Hazel cake is not my really butter actually, but I would say it's a very good beer.
Yeah, I haven't tried the hazy yet. I'm going to try that this evening.
It's a good thing, and I still didn't. Okay, and the feedback about sour was good.
I like that one.
She says it was good.
She says it was good. So about Crooked Spider, everything is nice and clean, very professional, no questions. I'm very impressed by the Belgian line, and the triple of them all is, to me, is the best. I would drink it again. And the Russian Imperial Stout in a small can was really impressive, because to me it was really so true to the style, and it's as good as it gets, more or less, I would say. So I mean, if I want to have something just like a wine, a glass of expensive good wine with my last news on TV, I would have this can. I would say. I'm very impressed in general by both of us. I'm glad the craft beer market has guys like you. We rise the bar.
Yes.
Or you rise the bar, at least.
How about you,
We all
Matt?
raise the bar.
Was there any particular one in each of those that you like as a personal favorite, you'd say that's.
I'm drinking now the triple,
Okay.
and I'm very pleasantly surprised and how drinkable it is for a 8% beer. I wouldn't
Yeah,
give it 8%.
so we always joke because it's named after a windmill that's called Windlust. And we always say, like, because we add all the oats and all the wheat, like you don't really notice that it's 8%. And sometimes you wake up in the morning thinking that you've got a hit from the windmill.
Yeah,
So just be careful there.
I could be easily fooled by this beer. Yeah.
Dangerous.
And I like that one and the wheat beer most. And I didn't get to try the stouts yet. I'm leaving that for last. And from El Camino, I like the pale ale best. It was very refreshing, very easy drinkable. I could imagine drinking it on the beach and chilling the whole day.
Yeah, I had that one too. I haven't tried the Aviator yet from El Camino, but I tried that pale ale and the amber. Very nice. So yeah. So since I asked you about your other beers, now I'm going to ask you one more question before I let you all go home or stay at home if you're there. Like, out of all the styles you're doing, you're doing it. Is there some sort of beer? Because we've been discussing, about how you have to go for the market and what your market is, and that. Is there some style of beer that you haven't brewed yet that you'd really like to brew, and do you think there's a market for it among your audience?
One of my favorite styles is Weissbier, and that's something that it's very difficult to do if you don't have the right conditions and the right liquid yeast and everything, and that's something I'm really hoping to do in the near future. There's not a huge market for that in Croatia, but we're still going to do it because we're very big Weissbier fans. Everybody's doing here IPAs and sours and pastry stouts like it's popular everywhere else. So a little bit of these traditional styles could do something interesting in the market. I think there's only like maybe 2 or 3 Weissbiers in Croatia.
Okay.
Yeah, nobody does it.
Okay, that's surprising because it does seem to have become quite popular in recent years. I don't know. I was going to say recently, but probably going back a few years.
Paulaner burns the ground behind them.
Yeah. How about you, Boris? Anything that you've never brewed, but you really, would love?
I did several tries to get a decent NEPA. And I think in the future we will do it anyway. So the problem for me is it doesn't stay fresh for long. So I mean, if you have a small batch and you can sell it within like 3 to 6 months, let's say, it's fine. But if you have to keep it for more, it's a problem. And also you cannot filter it, and the amount of the yeast is very high, and yeast is very, very active, I would say, for this style of the beer. I mean, probably I should learn more. I'm trying to follow some advice from the guys from Triloom, if you know the brewery. And we have a friend of us who learned from them, so I will do my homework and come back to NEPA again next summer.
Okay. And Niels?
Send it. Yeah, so we are trying to start kettle sours. So I don't think when we had the opportunity, like when I was brewing for somebody else, like we could have made kettle sours, but it wasn't very big yet. And now we have the opportunity with our new brewery. And yeah, I'm keen to try it, but it's always also like it's very scary to introduce like a sour or diastatica strain like into your brewery and make sure like it stays safe. So I'm really curious to try it. So yeah, that I think is the most exciting part now to expand on our range.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, they sound like ones we'll have to keep an eye out for the different styles from each of you coming down the line. Listen, we've had we've been nearly an hour and a half now, so I'm going to let you go. So thanks a million for taking part, and for it was enjoyable. I think we learned a lot, and it was a good thing, and hopefully everybody tasting everyone else's beers, got a bit of enjoyment and but maybe a little bit of inspiration out of that too, because that's what I found out about these sessions is just just that mix, and you come across a brewery you haven't seen before, you try their beer, and it's generally a positive thing. So this is the last session we're going to have for this year. Hopefully, if 2022 gets all better, people might still want to come on and do something online, but we'll see how it goes in February. Because I started having these chats in February this year, and over time I've talked to over 60 brewers from over 10 countries, so it's been quite fun. And I'm hoping maybe we will want to come back sometime later next year, and maybe we'll bring some people back and get some new people, and hopefully just continue it on. So listen, I'm going to play out a small little video and just say thanks again.
Best wishes to you, Brian, with your project. Thank you, guys. Merry Christmas, and you always welcome to Santander, Spain.
Yeah, if we're ever up there.
If we ever finish the El Camino, then we'll come down to you.
And you have to send
we're at the beginning. It's easy.
It depends, where you look at it. So my parents are low, and they're actually walking down there. So maybe I'll join them just to go to your bar.
Stop partway. I'll see you later. All right, listen, guys. Thanks a million for taking part, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Enjoy the rest of the year. Hopefully, 2021 was a bit better than 2020, so hopefully 2022 will be even better, and we'll get back to some bit of normality. And I'll just play this out and say thanks a million again for taking part and for everything.
Thank you too.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Yes.